Hello, my name is Alan. Have you ever dreamed of learning foreign languages quickly? For example, I always wanted this because it seemed to me that languages are the way to survival, a better life, and besides, extra knowledge is not superfluous. Now, I will tell you how I managed to learn a foreign language in just one night. As I have already told you, I have always had problems with learning, but not only languages, but everything new. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe my memory is not so good from birth, or as they say now, it is not developed enough. Every time I was given a task at school to learn a rhyme, it meant that I would fail because I knew that I would spend a lot of time with my phenomenal memory. And then the school program started learning languages, and that's when I realized that I was finished. We had French, Japanese, and Korean. I thought, are you kidding me? Yes, I barely remember my schedule, and you want me to remember the hieroglyphs? I was indignant, for which, in fact, I received deuces. There was nowhere to go, so with tears in my eyes and under the strict influence of my mother, I sat and crammed. It was terrible. I still get goosebumps when I think about it. I left school with a heartbreak and made a promise to myself never to study languages again. I had enough of my native language. That was until I discovered love. Oh yes, my first love was from Japan. Her name was Yuki. We met by accidents. I went to Japan with my brother last year for his work, but he took me with him just to look at smart people. We spent 10 days there, and during all this time, I mainly focused on their technologies. I photographed everything, looked, and felt. Since I didn't really know their language, only what I had learned from school, I didn't communicate or talk to anyone. My brother was at work all day, and I was walking alone, and that was fine with me. About the 8th day of our stay, I finally decided not to look for tech stores, but just decided to enjoy a light walk, look at people, take beautiful photos. As I passed an ice cream stand, I decided to treat myself to dessert and got in line. In front of me was a Japanese girl. She was so small, at the level of my shoulders. I stood like a fool, and for some reason I stared in her direction. I was so interested in finding out how old she was that I must have looked like a sleepwalker from the outside when I stared intently at her profile. She first endured, but then she screamed something loud and ringing and such. Ah! And hopped by foot between my legs. I broke down immediately, covered myself with my hands, doubled over, and fell to the ground dead. I think even tears rolled from my eyes. Then my brother ran up to me and asked me what was the matter. I couldn't say anything, so the girl explained something emotionally. It turns out that she thought I was a maniac tourist with dirty thoughts and intentions. My brother began to apologize for me, and then he explained the situation. I explained myself again. Sumimasen, I said, and bowed 3 times. My brother called me an idiot, and we left. You know, while she was standing there yelling at me, I had time to see her whole face. It was very cute, even when she was angry. This girl seemed charming to me. I stayed up all night wishing I'd met her. The next day, taking a chance, I went back to the ice cream stand. It was a miracle, but she was standing there again. I went up to her to remember Japanese from the school, Konnichiwa watashi wa Alandis. I introduced myself and said hello. Then I tried to apologize for yesterday and probably said something wrong because she laughed out loud. I felt awkward and handed her flowers. This gesture was instead of words. She accepted the bouquet and said, Yuki. Oh, how I wanted to chat with her, get to know her, invite her anywhere, but I couldn't say a word. And this was my last day in Japan. I called my brother and he translated our conversation on the phone, although it was not long, but we exchanged phone numbers, found each other in social networks, and I promised to write to her. My brother said that she liked me, and I don't know how he knew that, but he knew a lot about Japanese, so I wanted to believe that he was right. When I got home, I immediately signed up for a Japanese course, and then I was confronted with a wall of bad memories. How I learned languages. Each character was harder to remember than the other, but I worked hard, never missing a day. It was both hard and interesting. Yuki and I corresponded on the internet only with emotions. It was terrible, but I tried to make her laugh. This girl has sunk into the soul, as they say. My brother also helped me learn the language, but it was not always possible because of work. A month later, I realized that there was not much progress. Oh, how I freaked out then. It was like going back to school. There was a teacher in one ring, and I was in the other, and I had only knockouts on my account. At some point, I even thought to give up the idea of communicating with Yuki, but it is too firmly sunk into my soul. My brother told me not to give up, so I pulled myself together and started doing twice as much. And when I thought I was almost ready, I called Yuki and said the first few sentences, but she didn't understand much, and neither did I. Then I was more angry with myself than I had ever been in my life. I went outside, psychologically kicked a soccer ball in the yard. It bounced off the wall, hit me on the head. I lost my balance and fell head first on a rock. Then, to be honest, I don't really remember anything. I was told by my family that they saw me lying on the ground. My brother called an ambulance, and I was hospitalized. It turned out nothing serious. I got a concussion and something else that I found out later. When I was drunk from the hospital, I came home, saw a pile of books on Japanese on the table, remembered that I had already missed several classes, and sat down to remember the material I had passed. Reread the phrase book, dictionary, repeated grammar, and wrote some words. When I looked back, it was almost morning outside. I went to bed and was woken up a few hours later by an incoming call. I couldn't believe it was Yuki calling. Turns out that she called when I was in the hospital and my brother told her about how ridiculously injured I was. But it was nice to know that she was worried. When I picked up the phone, she was asking a lot of questions about my health, and I started answering her. It was only after a few minutes of conversation that she paused. And then, "Did you learn Japanese in the hospital?" And I realized that I was fluent in it. In general, I did not understand how my brain worked in the opposite direction, but I liked it. Since that night, I can communicate fluently in a foreign language, but I continue to improve it, and I also signed up for a couple of other languages, just to expand my horizons. Would you like to have some kind of superpower? What would you choose? I'd prefer teleportation, telekinesis, or the ability to inspire. But my friends say I already have a special gift. I will tell you about it now. According to my mother's story, the day I was born was crazy weather. Rain turned to snow, snow to rain, then suddenly sunshine. They were very much waiting for my birth with my father, since their age was old and there were no more children. It will seem strange, but I did not grow and develop like all children. At about 9 months, I already began to walk, and when I was barely 2 years old, I was already talking. Because of my rapid development and early age, I could not go to kindergarten, so my parents hired teachers and I studied at home. My mother said that I have a great desire and interest in studying. All night, there were practically no toys in my room. I was literally drowning in encyclopedias. I could not quench my thirst for knowledge. I thought I was getting stronger when I knew more. My parents were proud that I had such a great memory and that I was such a gifted child. They were sure that I was born for a special purpose. With this thought in mind, I continued to develop my skills. At about 6 years old, I already knew 2 foreign languages, Spanish and French. As expected, I had to go up the social ladder gradually, so when I went to first grade, I was really bored. Just imagine that you are 18 years old in development, and you are sitting among children and learning the alphabet. But my parents asked me to be patient, to give them time to prepare the principal and teachers for my talent. The first 6 months, I still somehow lasted, but I was irritated by my peers, who drew letters as they fell, read from syllables, and did not know the periodic table. For my little rebellion and refusal to get acquainted with the letter R, I was put alone in the very back of the desks. This proved to be a good thing, because there I was not disturbed by anyone, and I allowed myself to continue studying probability theory. My classmates were afraid of my appearance. I think because I felt much older than them and looked like a baby, and children feel each other. I managed to pretend to be normal, but over time, my acting skills began to fail. Okay, I admit, I did it on purpose. Our teacher, Miss Gandhi, was a nice girl, quite erudite, correct, and very attractive to look at. I told you I was only a child on the outside. I can already evaluate women's beauty. So once, in one of the lessons, she gave us a task. She was preparing for some courses in mathematics. Miss Gandhi tried to multiply, divide, add up large numbers in her mind. 1, 2, 3 times 6, 3, 4, you get 77,981. 2, I said. What? Will be 77,982. The teacher looked questioningly at the classroom door, but there was no one else there. First, she checked everything on the calculator, then looked at the class. Everyone was busy with her task, everyone except me. She asked if I had spoken to her. Well, I did not miss the opportunity to have a dialogue with her. I told her that I am actually a little different. My teacher was thrilled. She admired my talent for 10 minutes, and then she imagined telling the principal about me and me bringing the school gold medals in intellectual competitions. When I came home after school, my parents were furious. They didn't like the idea of me acting on my own. They considered my gift exceptional, and they were afraid that it might cost us dearly, that others may begin to think that I was abnormal. In short, they chose silence, like I'm some kind of mutant. I told them they promised to train teachers, but they never did, and I was tired of sitting here like this. The next day, I had a meeting with my parents at the principal's office, where I demonstrated my abilities. Miss Gandhi kept saying that I was unique and that I couldn't hide it. She called the parents' outburst a crime. In general, as expected, I participated in many Olympiads and competitions on behalf of the school. Since I was too young, I was offered to go to school, but at the same time to study at the level that is convenient for me. When I was 12 years old, I passed all the exams in the school curriculum and graduated with high school students. By then, I was already a local star. I was asked to create a club for gifted children and work with the children there, and I agreed. But that's not all. My fame, of course, went beyond the school. Strangers began to come visit us and offer to participate in their projects. Among them were not only honest businessmen, but also scammers. They saw my gift from their own angle, promised to pay. I admit, by that time I was looking for something unusual, a modern place of work where people would not pay attention to my age. And I found it. A few years later, after passing an interview and completing dozens of tricky tasks, I was working for an American multinational corporation, and you know what? If you feel a talent, the ability to come up with something, create. Do not give in to mass influence. Do not hesitate to act. No one can feel you like you do.